Modern warfare is a promise of absolute certainty. We've spent trillions of dollars on a global infrastructure designed to ensure that every movement is tracked, every position is known, and every threat is identified before it can even draw breath. We live in the era of the God view. But here, where it gets interesting, there is one environment on Earth where that entire multi-billion-dollar system doesn't just glitch. It collapses, quietly at first, and then all at once. Imagine standing in a place where your GPS is a liar and your high-frequency radio is nothing more than a 3-pound paperweight. You aren't losing to an enemy combatant. You are losing to the system you were taught to trust. This next part sounds obvious, but most soldiers don't realize they are in trouble until the jungle has already decided their fate. By the time they recognize the visibility collapse, the trap is already sprung. There's a specific moment every soldier remembers, the moment the silence changes. Meet Lieutenant Sarah. She is the pinnacle of modern training, carrying 60 pounds of the most advanced carbon fiber gear and encrypted communication arrays ever devised. She enters the Philippine canopy with a sense of mission. Most people stop here, thinking her gear is her shield, but watching her from only 20 meters away is Mateo, a local instructor who carries almost nothing but a blade and a canteen. He doesn't look like a warrior of the future, but he understands something Sarah doesn't. The jungle doesn't hide the enemy, it hides certainty. As Sarah checks her digital map, only to find it's failed to update, Mateo is already moving. He isn't reacting to her, he is simply part of the environment she is fighting against. In the open desert or the urban sprawl, soldiers think in kilometers. In the jungle, distance disappears. 5 meters feels like 50, 50 meters feels like an impossible multi-day journey. This is the visibility collapse. But here, where it gets deeper, it's not just that you can't see the enemy, it's that you lose the ability to anticipate. When light becomes unreliable and shapes lose their definition, your brain begins to fragment movement. Sarah looks through her $40,000 thermal optics, but the humidity has turned the world into a gray, pulsing blur. Because she cannot see what is coming, she is forced to react. And in this terrain, if you are reacting, you are already too late. You are no longer the hunter, you are the variable. Now the layered collapse accelerates into the communication layer. Sarah reaches for her radio to coordinate a simple flanking maneuver, but the canopy is so dense that the signals fade into a rhythmic hiss of static. This next part sounds obvious, but modern armies don't just use communication, they depend on it for their very structure. Without that digital umbilical cord, the unit begins to loosen. Commands arrive late, or they don't arrive at all. Sarah feels a cold spike of adrenaline, not because she's under fire, but because she's alone in a crowd. Mateo, meanwhile, moves without a sound. He doesn't need a radio, because his unit operates on internal understanding rather than external instruction. They don't wait for permission to survive. The jungle is not a backdrop. It is an active antagonist that attacks your biology. The heat doesn't just make you sweat. It clings to you like a wet shroud, slowly raising your core temperature until your logic begins to fray. Humidity turns every breath into a physical struggle. But here, where it gets interesting, your body feels the failure before your mind accepts it. Your reaction time slows by milliseconds, then seconds. Your focus narrows until the only thing that exists is the 6 inches of mud in front of your boots. Sarah is now conserving energy without even realizing it, which means she has started to hesitate. In the jungle, hesitation is the first symptom of a terminal mistake. This leads to the psychological break. When your body is failing and your technology is dead, your mind begins to fill the gaps with ghosts. Every snap of a twig becomes a sniper. Every pause in the wind feels like an ambush. Most people stop here, thinking this is just stress. It's more than that. It is the systematic dismantling of the modern soldier's ego. Sarah starts seeing threats that aren't there, causing her to waste energy and focus, which ensures she misses the threat that is there. She is a soldier trained for precision, now trapped in an environment that rewards only chaos. She is no longer fighting Mateo. She is fighting her own perception. While Sarah's unit is breaking, Mateo's team is operating effortlessly. This is the payoff, the Philippine Doctrine. The Philippines didn't just adapt to the jungle. They were shaped by it, thousands of islands and impenetrable terrain. Their doctrine was never built on the promise of control. It was built on the reality of uncertainty. Instead of large, coordinated forces that require a God view to function, they utilized small, independent units. These teams move based on mutual understanding. They don't wait for a signal because the signal was already decided 100 years ago, survived by being the thing that the jungle cannot break. For Matteo, the jungle is not an obstacle to be overcome. It is a strategic weapon to be wielded. He uses the visibility collapse to mask his movement and the communication failure to isolate Sarah's team. He knows that the more advanced a force is, the more fragile it becomes when its tools are removed. This next part sounds obvious, but awareness beats equipment every single time. Matteo wins because he belongs to the class of warriors who need the least. By stripping away the need for GPS and constant contact, he has removed every vulnerability that is currently destroying Sarah's resolve. This isn't just a story about a jungle. This is a preview of the future of global conflict. As warfare shifts toward environments that cannot be seen by satellites or mapped by AI, the power dynamic is flipping. The real weakness of modern militaries isn't a lack of technology. It's the assumption that technology will always be there. We are entering an era where the most advanced force can become the weakest the moment the lights go out. Experts have watched this pattern for decades. Terrain eventually decides everything. You either learn to thrive in the system's shadow, or you become a casualty of your own sophistication. The ultimate truth is uncomfortable. The system you trust to protect you is the same system that will imprison you when it fails. The God view was always an illusion. But here, where the real twist lies, there is a specific hidden training protocol used to build the internal understanding Matteo uses, a method that requires no electronics, only a radical shift in how the human brain processes fear. If you want to see exactly how that protocol works and how it's being adopted by elite units worldwide, you need to see what happens next. Click the video on the screen to dive into the minimalist protocol. Stay sharp.